Hi, it's me, Tony Buglass, Methodist minister, still thinking my way through these disciples and apostles of Jesus. And the hardest one of the lot, I think, Judas. What can we say about Judas? I mean, at one level, he comes across as the biggest villain in the New Testament, worse than Herod or Nero or Domitian or any of the others, because he was supposed to be on Jesus' side. He was supposed to be a friend. Well, the gospel writers didn't think much of him. I mean, Luke, when he talks about him, he says Satan entered into him. John, in his gospel, he says that Judas was a thief. He was the treasurer of the group. He was dipping his hands in the purse, spending the money for himself. He talks about him as the son of perdition, which in his language is very nasty indeed. What was Judas playing at? I mean, how could he betray Jesus the way that he did? Well, the thing is, like most of these things, it's obviously not as simple as it looks. Judas wasn't just a double crosser. It wasn't as if he joined in on it to then go and drop Jesus in it. The conversation that they had at the Last Supper makes it look as if Jesus knows what's going on. He sends Judas out, he said, go and do it. And Judas thinks he's doing what Jesus wants. So, what's happening here? Well, there's one possible explanation is that Judas was a zealot. The Zealots were a revolutionary group. They wanted to get rid of the Romans and they were trying all ways to fight against them, resistance movement, all of that sort of thing. And they believed that if Messiah came, or when Messiah came, he would be a great military leader. He would start the revolution. He would help them to throw the Romans out. And because he was Messiah, whereas other revolutions had failed, Messiah would do it. And that would be it. Judas, like the other disciples, thought Jesus was the Messiah, and therefore he was waiting for Jesus to find the right place to start his revolution. Now, of course, these days, if you start a revolution, if you're going to try and overthrow government, one of the main things that you're going to do is get hold of the mass media, TV, radio, internet, whatever, um, get your word out, get people on your side. They couldn't do that in Jerusalem, could they? I mean, the Jerusalem Times wasn't publishing, the Jerusalem TV channel hadn't been invented. You get what I'm saying? How do you do this? You've got to find an occasion where you can get the biggest possible crowd, and that's how you're going to make it work. Get an audience and say, right now, Judas looks as if he thought Jesus was getting him to set him up, get him arrested, get him on trial before the Sanhedrin. Biggest weekend of the year, Passover weekend. Jerusalem was absolutely jam packed. It was also an emotionally charged weekend for the Jews. This was their weekend where they were celebrating what it meant to be Jews, and the Romans were in the way. This is the perfect time to do it. So Jesus says to Judas, go and do what you've got to do. Judas goes, sets him up, and he's now waiting for Jesus to be taken in front of the crowd and then say, right, now. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if Judas had groups of his friends scattered through the crowd with their knives ready to jump on the local Romans, started then, and it would have gone. And it didn't happen. So Judas is there, watching Jesus allow sentence to be passed and then quietly taken away and thinking, come on, Lord, any time now, any time, this will be a good point. If they get you out there nearly, what then? And it didn't happen. And that's when Judas realizes that he's got it badly, badly wrong. Whatever he thought he was doing, Jesus was actually doing something very, very different. He was deliberately self-sacrificing, allowing himself to be taken and go all the way to death. Imagine how Judas felt. Do we feel sorry for Judas? Well, the gospel writers didn't. But you can understand after that, no wonder he committed suicide. How could he go back to the other apostles and say, Sorry, guys, I just didn't understand. How can he go back to anybody and say, look, what I really thought? There's no way out. So he kills himself. But if that means Judas wasn't really trying to betray Jesus, what does that say about Judas as son of perdition, Satan headed to him, etc., etc., etc.? Was he really the bad guy that we thought he was? More to the point, Judas wasn't the only one to betray Jesus. Don't forget Peter. Peter, who, as the story unfolds in the Acts of the Apostles, becomes the hero of the first part. He's the big fisherman. He's the leader of the gang. He's the apostle that leads the way. Um, but he's the one who betrayed Jesus by denying him 3 times. And he's the one who, at that breakfast on the lake shore after the resurrection, has that conversation with Jesus where Jesus gets him to affirm 3 times. If you like, cancel out each of those denials. Interesting thought. If Judas hadn't committed suicide, if Judas had gone off on his own, lying low, thinking, where do I go? What do I do? And then heard that Jesus was alive and come back, and then said, Lord, I didn't mean that. Would Judas have been forgiven? Would the way the gospel writers tell the story be quite different with hindsight? Interesting thought, isn't it? The possibility that Judas might be there in heaven waiting, because from that point of view, things look very different. Judas, Peter. The thing is, all of us have got it wrong in various ways. Sometimes we've done it the way that Peter did it, just failing to get it, not having the guts to follow through and say, yeah, I think this is what Jesus wants me to do. You know, we failed. And there are other times when we've more or less done it the way that Judas did, because Judas's big mistake was to try and take Jesus and fit him into his agenda instead of fitting himself into Jesus' agenda. How many times have we done that? How many times has the church done that? You know, the way that we've built religious institutions and forced Jesus into a mold, this political institutional figure, to justify what we want to do as a powerful structure. Things like that. We've all got it a bit wrong from time to time. And we've all come to Jesus and said, sorry, Lord, I didn't mean it to work out like that. I didn't think that one through. I wasn't able to do it. Can I try again? Will you forgive me? And of course, that's what the gospel is really about. That's what Jesus is really about picking us up, putting us back on our feet and saying, right, now, just like I said to Peter, you follow me. That's all that we're being called to do. Yeah, you trip up, you take a wrong turn, you fall over, and Jesus is right, pick you up, put you on your feet. You follow me. Would it work for Judas? Will it work for Peter? It works for us. Keep following.